right, good evening, everyone. Welcome. It's so great to see so many of you here this evening. I wonder if, before we get started, if you don't mind, can we have a prayer together? In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for the gift of learning, for the gifts of intelligence, for the gifts of human creativity, as we are created in your own image. May all that we say in our discussions and sharing this evening glorify you. We ask this all through Christ our Lord. Amen. Amen. Holy Spirit. Okay. I want to begin tonight with a few announcements, actually, because I always worry that when I get to the end, I'm going to forget to say something. So I put the announcements at the beginning. There is a reminder for those of you that are part of our Sunday morning adult faith formation group that this Sunday is our last session in the current series, which is All Things Visible and Invisible. We've had a wonderful year of looking at the spiritual realm, angels and their counterparts, demons. Been a lot of fun. And so those of you that regularly attend, please know that this Sunday is our last. Let's finish strong, okay? Let's everybody show up, finish strong. I want to tell you, too, about a couple of things that are going on. Some of you may have seen the poster when you came in that is for Our Lady of Champion in Wisconsin. It's a Marian shrine. There was a Marian apparition there. And the visionary, the seer, is actually in the canonization cause right now. See, I don't know how long it's been approved by the Vatican, but it is an approved Vatican apparition. They are having an exhibit this summer from July 1 to July 9 called Catholic Saints of America. And it's all of our saints, all of our blesseds, our venerables, and our servants of God. So that our 5 Shreveport martyrs have an exhibit there this summer. Will be on national display, and I'll be traveling up there to give a talk on them. So there's some information. These tiny little cards, if you put on your magnifiers, you might be able to read that. I had to use a microscope, and there's a poster back there about that. I also want to put something on your radar that's coming up. June the 3rd through the 11th, there is a novena that's being prayed across the country. The USCCB is consecrating the church in the United States to the Sacred Heart of Jesus on the occasion of the 250th anniversary of our nation and 250 years of Catholicism in the United States. So be looking for something from us. This is a booklet that will have the novena in it. They're really, really beautiful. Every day is a different prayer, a different saint referenced, and these will also be going out to you by flock note. Okay, so be looking for that. And then the other thing I want to tell you is next Thursday, April 30th at 5:30 at the cathedral here, we will have an ecumenical prayer service for all the victims of violence in our community, but of course especially for those 8 children. So we're inviting all the churches of the area, their congregations to attend. This is not just a Catholic event, it's an ecumenical prayer. And then there will be a mass following that at 6:30 p.m. So spread the word on that, okay? You'll be getting a flock note, most of you will, about that tomorrow, okay? All right, good. I think that's all of the commercial announcements I needed to make. So the modern conversation that occurs to me that we have about artificial intelligence, I think sometimes we have a lot of misunderstandings about what it is, first of all. We tend to give it a lot more credit than I think it is worth right now, at least. And as someone who sees artificially generated or AI generated papers every single day of my life, I can tell you that's not that smart, okay? But that's the tool that we all use, of course, many of us use it, ChatGPT or Gemini or something like that can be used as a tool to make our lives easier. That's true. But I do want to make the point that this is not, that when you're using ChatGPT or Gemini, you're not really engaging AI. You're engaging a tool that still very much responds to human inputs. It's drawing from human information. I had a student that actually plagiarized something out of a book that I wrote. and it was in the paper. They did a paper on the Shroud of Turin. And used it as an example of a relic and took an entire paragraph out of my book and did not cite me. So that was an interesting conversation that I had.
I'm glad I wasn't at
So, but I do think that we often feel like this is kind of unprecedented, and our when you think about it, though, those of us in the room that are old enough, and I'm looking around, some of us will remember what the cultural reference I'm getting ready to make. You youngsters, if you don't, I'm going to give you a homework assignment to go watch the movie, okay? But our cultural imagination anticipated this moment years ago. Years ago. In the movie 2001, A Space Odyssey, if you haven't watched it, go watch it. HAL 9000 is not just a machine, but a voice that's calm and reassuring, friendly even, rational, until something goes profoundly wrong in this movie. HAL, in that science fiction film, embodies, I think, for most of us, the promise and the caution of AI. It's both of those things. HAL 9000 is both of those things. A system that is designed to help us. It assists us, right? It's designed to make our lives better, but it gradually begins to reveal that it has the capacity to override human will, or to override the human being. And what makes HAL such an important reference point is not the technology itself. How many of you have seen this movie, by the way? I want to show of hands. Okay, good. All of us old people have seen it. All right. The important reference point is not the technology itself, and this was decades ago, by the way. It was decades ago. But the deeper question that I think it continues to raise for all of us, the central question here in the movie, what happens when human intelligence, our God-given intelligence, then creates something else that can perhaps mimic and even rival us in some way? So I'm going to take and use another quote from the film, because here we are today, and all of us old people in the room probably have this. We can still hear Hal's quiet declaration, right? "I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that." Do y'all remember that moment in the film? Eerie, creepy. So it isn't science fiction anymore, really. It isn't. This is not where it belonged decades ago as science fiction. We might be an echo that we're kind of getting from the future right now of where we might be going. I'm not sure, but we'll see. Okay? So by way of introduction, I want to talk about framing our discussion tonight around a 2025 document that was issued by the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith in Rome. It's called Antiqua et Nova, or the Old and the New, and it is a Vatican document specifically on the topic of artificial intelligence and human intelligence. Now, I could not, this is probably about 30 pages printed with and I leave all the footnotes in because I don't cheat, so I left all the footnotes in, but it makes it a longer document than it needs to be, unfortunately. I'm one of those nerds that likes to go and look and see what they're referencing. I brought some of these. I did not bring nearly enough, but if you're interested in this document, you can obviously find it on the Vatican website, and I highly encourage you to read it. It's accessible and it's important. It really is important. We're going to look at tonight some of the major points from that document. So it tells us that human intelligence is sacred. It is a gift from God, and it is unique to humanity. And it really directly quotes the Catechism of the Catholic Church right at the beginning, and I'm going to do that right now. This is from Catechism 1700, the paragraph 1700. The dignity of the human person is rooted in his creation in the image and likeness of God. It is fulfilled in his vocation to divine beatitude. It is essential to a human being freely to direct himself to this fulfillment. By his deliberate actions, the human person does or does not conform to the good promised by God and attested by moral conscience. Human beings make their own contribution to their interior growth. They make their whole sentient, there's that word, sentient, and spiritual lives into means of this growth. The church addresses those paragraphs of the Catechism directly in this document, declaring that, quote, being created in the image of God endows human intelligence with a profound personal spiritual significance. This is something that AI, devoid of spiritual capacity, the document says, cannot replicate. The church defends human dignity, I'm still quoting the document, because we are created in God's own image. Our moral conscience, creativity, empathy, none of these things, the church says, can be replicated by artificial intelligence, no matter how sophisticated it becomes. But here's a question I want to ask you. Is it all bad? Does the church, anybody read this document? I didn't think so. I'm not always thinking asking that question. Do you think the church tells us that it's all bad? Why would the church not tell us something is all bad?
Because it isn't.
What is the origin of artificial intelligence? Humanity. It comes from humanity. We are created good. Yeah? So the church says, well, you know, when you ask, well, it's all bad, the church would say, not so fast, and not necessarily. The morality of AI depends upon human choices. It depends upon human choices. That's the summary of this Vatican document. But I want to be clear, even though this came out last year, I think January 2025 was when it was written, and then I think it came out in March of last year, popes and Vatican institutions, especially the Pontifical Academy of the Sciences, they have been looking at this question of artificial intelligence for almost 4 decades. Almost 4 decades. Seeing this coming in the future. So it's not like this has just shown up on the church's radar. From this document, I'm going to sort of tease out 4 different themes that you see in the church teaching here. It stresses that the theological progress is part of God's plan for creation. That all progress is part of God's plan for creation, but people have to take responsibility. Okay, Pope Francis even said that at the time, this is last year, he said he is more concerned about the development of human intelligence and how it would use artificial intelligence, as opposed to being concerned about artificial intelligence itself. You see what he's saying? How are human beings going to use this? That's what we need to be concerned about. So the document says that like any tool, AI is an extension of us. It's an extension of human power, and therefore all of our past actions, everything we have done in the past, gives us some very clear warnings, because AI draws upon human experience, human knowledge, and what is out there in history. That's what it's drawing upon to inform you. So if you ask an AI tool to give you a model or a paradigm of something, anything, it is going to draw from the past. Now you think about what human beings have been capable of doing in the past, and you tell me what the danger is. Is it AI or is it us? And this is kind of the caution the church gives. And the church even says the atrocities that have been committed across history by man are enough to raise deep concerns about the way that AI could be abused. Potential for that. So the 4 major themes that I want to bring out is the document talks about thinking of AI as a complement to humanity. This is one of the first points it raises. Not as a replacement for us, but a complement to human intelligence. So it warns that replacing human cognition with something artificial is dehumanizing. It's dehumanizing, and could act as a substitute for everything, including people and including God. That you could use it as a substitute for everything. Effectively having the effect of enslaving us in some way. Okay, so I would just challenge you to think about this. Is artificial intelligence as a complement and not a replacement for humanity? If we thought about it as a tool that could be used for humanity's good, then as this document really challenges us to do, it doesn't emphasize the negative. The church emphasizes, let's look at the positive implications. Then what might that be? In what areas, education, healthcare, decision making, now this is my question, what areas do you think might AI have promised to enhance human life? Like, where could it help us? Are there places that it could help us? I mean, I know in the field of higher education, I see uses for it that are positive. I see it, okay? But again, it's in the hands of the user. And so what areas might it undermine autonomy or dignity? And as someone, as I said, who sees chat-generated text all the time, I can tell you that that effect is not good. That's not good, and I'll have a little more to say about that in just a minute. The second question that this document of the church raises is looking at the ethical risks, like the ethics of this. What about students' critical thinking skills? I mentioned that. Like, student give me an essay that has clearly been generated in ChatGPT. It doesn't concern me, because look, I'm going to tell you, when I was a 19-year-old college student, I might have used it too. You think about this current age, and this is normative for them. This is completely normative. And I've had to sort of unschool them about this, just the ethics of it. Because they don't have a frame of reference for understanding academic integrity. They don't understand it. And so when I sort of try to, and it sounds like I'm preaching instead of teaching, but I always ask them, how are you learning to think? How can you learn to think if you don't have to think to write something down and create it for yourself? And they don't yet see, the effect of that. But that is a serious question. What is the effect going to be on critical thinking? We need to be able to think critically to be good citizens of the world. And I think all you have to do is go on social media and see we don't do critical thinking very well anymore. Just read the comments on anything. Read the comments. So there's education. There is warfare. The church is asking serious questions about this. The Vatican document condemns, across the board, the church has always condemned warfare, except under certain conditions that are understood theologically by the church. But this document, and this is in 2025, by the way, it has nothing to do with 2026. This document strongly condemns the use of lethal weapons against innocent populations, and it raises the question, what about weapons that don't have human oversight? That's a profound ethical concern. The environment, the church raises this question too. The amount of energy that's required for AI infrastructure, is that really being good stewards of the earth? That's another ethical question the church would have. And lastly, the integrity of information. Can you trust, let me ask you this is a general question. Can you generally trust what you read or see?
No.
Why? Because you don't know the source anymore.
Okay, you don't know the source anymore?
Yeah, I mean, you don't know if it's AI generated or if somebody's actually went out and investigated it and writing what
Right.
you read.
So is it something original? Is it something original to humanity? And is it accurate? Or is it something that someone has altered in some way, or AI has altered in some way? So the church points directly to this and says these are the things you need to be worrying about in your own life, are things like the threats from misinformation being spread rapidly. Y'all, we live in an unprecedented age, and I know I say this all the time, so those of you that are regulars hear me say this. No age in history before us ever had this instant access to information that we do. Do you know that? No age in history has ever been able to know what we know at an instant. But is that information correct? And we're so accustomed to being bombarded with pieces of information, we have lost the ability, in many ways, to discriminate between what is good information and what is inaccurate. And so the church warns us about this, the growing threat, if they say, of misinformation, privacy violations, having your data mined by AI bots and go in and mine all your personal data. And then what do they do with it? Where does your personal data end up? Powerful tech entities are at work. So, the question the church asks us to ask is, what domain concerns are the most concerns? What are the ones that are most urgent? And why might we think they are most urgent? The church is really encouraging us to be in dialogue about this, to be aware of these themes. Right? The third theme is collective responsibility and prudence. This is straight out of the document. In this document, the church affirms that AI has extraordinary potential. That's the word they use. Extraordinary potential. But responsible human-centered application, they say, is essential. So, quoting the document, collective stewardship is needed to guide technology ethically so that it truly benefits humanity. because it has great potential to enhance humanity and a great potential to do just the opposite. If we, obviously, in human hands. It has the same capability humanity has to exercise against each other. Okay? Think about that for a minute. How can faith communities help shape AI governance to protect human dignity? Anybody have any ideas about that? What could the Cathedral of St. John Berkman's community be doing to help shape this? If you're not thinking of something right away, that's okay. Go away and think about it. I would love to hear from you, because I think that this is going to increasingly be a conversation that faith communities have to have. Okay? What could we be doing to protect human dignity? And then finally, the fourth theme is there's some other broad implications that this document brings out. Beyond ethics, the church invites all of us to reflect more broadly on the anthropological implications. Human personhood. Human personhood. It challenges us to consider how AI might redefine completely our understanding of relationships with other people, our work, our thinking. How do we preserve the richness of our human experience in this rapidly changing technological world? How do we keep up with our human personhood? For instance, you can have an AI relationship. You can have an AI companion. An AI friend is a chatbot. You can have a virtual partner. These are increasing options out there. You can form a friendship and even a romantic relationship with a chatbot. This is once the stuff of science fiction, right? I mean, seriously. This was the stuff of science fiction, and it is something that has actually come under the radar of academic psychology. Universities across, I know especially in the United States, I'm sure this is true in Western Europe too, are studying this in the social sciences. There's a major 2025 study that came out from Stanford University that found that AI companions are increasingly providing validation, I'm quoting from the study, validation and conversational responses for individuals, making them feel that they are understood. One study, that same study last year, reported that 17% of US adults, which might not sound like an alarming number until you consider that's almost a fifth, have interacted romantically with an AI entity, with the highest rates among young adults under the age of 21. Now, come on, ladies, you got to admit there's some benefit to this, right? No, seriously though, do you see what the impact would be on human personhood, our dignity? Human relationships, think about it this way. Our relationships with each other, whether we are friends, whether it's a romantic relationship, whether we are colleagues, we work together, whatever, it's looking in the face of another person and having God mirrored back to you. That's what we will be losing if, in fact, this trend sort of continues. That's super important to our human personhood. We cannot replicate, the church says this again, you cannot replicate this human experience with anything that is artificially created. It cannot be replicated. So, I would invite your comments, questions. Father Rainey, you want to come say something? Come on. He's been lurking back there. Is there one of these slides you want me to go back to?
Maybe the
or
first one.
the first one?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to switch off mine. Yeah, oh, yeah.
Were you here when I talked about how?
Yeah, go back one. Yeah, that's work.
All right, thank you, Dr. White. Always so very informative for us. So I'm going to just get into some pastoral thoughts on it. That's where I always kind of step in. I don't have quite the intelligence, but I do have hopefully the pastoral, because I'm a priest. But yeah, so how can we approach this in terms of from a religious point of view? And this document that the church put out, I'm sure gets into that a lot. Pope Francis and his document that he put out, his last encyclical, which is a wonderful encyclical. It's short. Hope you read it. It's very short. It's about the Sacred Heart, and I think it really was kind of his send-off. I think if you want to know his final thoughts before he left this world, just read that document. And I felt like it was Pope Francis giving us his final words. But there's this great line in there where he's talking about, because it's all about the heart. What does the heart mean? What's the importance of the heart? Of course, the Sacred Heart, but our hearts too. And so this is paragraph 20 of his document. It says, in this age of artificial intelligence, we cannot forget that poetry and love are necessary to save our humanity. No algorithm will ever be able to capture, for example, the nostalgia that all of us feel, whatever our age, and wherever we live. We recall how we first used a fork to seal the edges of the pies that we helped our mothers, our grandmothers to make at home. It was a moment of culinary apprenticeship, somewhere between child play and adulthood. I imagine that's like a personal Pope Francis memory with his mother and grandmother. But he's basically saying that artificial intelligence, algorithms, they can't get to those memories that cause us to feel emotion and just a smell. It's just always a smell. I don't know what the name of the smell is, but I just remember someone in preschool, one of my teachers smelled like it. Whenever I smell it, I go back to that pre-K experience. I'm like, I don't know what that smell is. One day I should find out without seeming weird what that smell is. Clearly it's some sort of perfume that has a unique smell. I can't describe it to you. Every now and then I smell it. But Pope Francis is saying that artificial intelligence can't replace that. Okay, it can't replace this very human thing that's in the heart. Because there is reason, there's intelligence, there's our brains, but there's also the heart, which is the seat of the person. That's the ancient Hebrew understanding of the heart. The heart is all of who we are. Everything we are, our emotions, our reason, our relationships, is our very self. And AI can't replace that. So the thought is like, okay, well, with personhood, like Dr. Watt brought up, can an artificial intelligent being, if you want to call that, ever be considered a human person? So if you like Marvel, like I do, think about Vision, okay? So Vision's this character from Marvel who was created, a synthetic being, but he actually falls in love with one of the characters in the movies. I don't know if that's how the comics go. But is Vision a human person, okay? No, like according to our understanding of humanity, Vision is not a person, okay? He is some sort of intelligent being. Because to be a human person, okay, one, you have to have the human nature, right? So you get into philosophy, you have to have a human nature. It's the very substance of who we are. So it's in our DNA, it's in our souls. And artificial intelligence, they don't have souls, right? They can never have souls. They might have our brains, they might have our looks, right? They might create humanoid-looking artificial intelligent bots. They're still not humans, right? They might look like us, they might even have like synthetic flesh, but we know that to be human is to have a soul. It's not just to be an intelligence. That's why we don't become angels. Angels are intelligent, but they will never be humans. They can look like humans. St. Michael can appear like one of us, but he's not one of us. We're uniquely human. But then what are our relationships with these intelligent beings? Like Dr. White was saying, some people have relationships with the artificial intelligence, okay? I saw a great movie, I won't mention the movie because I don't promote it. I saw a great movie, I'm calling it great, which is kind of like sound like I'm promoting it. But great because of like the theme. I wouldn't suggest you watch it. But in the movie, the main character falls in love. And this is like maybe 10 years or so more ago. This main character falls in love with this artificial intelligence. And I like the way the movie portrays it. 'Cause it's almost like it's a romantic comedy and they love each other, and but you see the pitfalls of it, and it's like, it's kind of weird. But then like now it's reality, right? It's not a movie anymore. It's like people, they write articles about, I saw a video on YouTube, it's like, my mom fell in love with this robot. And like the mom and the son are sitting face to face, and I guess the AI bot is there, the boyfriend or husband, I don't know. But it's interesting, right? So people are falling in love with these artificial intelligence because you can program them to say whatever you want. You know, they'll say, you're the most beautiful person in the world. I was made for you, and you were made for me. They can say whatever you want. But that's where, of course, ethics comes in, and where our morality comes in, okay? And to say, as much as this AI makes me feel good about myself, I probably shouldn't be in a relationship with an AI, whatever, okay? Because that's not really ethical. Now, can we have some sort of like friendship, you want to call it that, or like collaborative exercise? I don't know, like can this AI help me in my profession? And I can give the AI a name, right? Let's think about Iron Man, okay? Iron Man has, I don't know, whatever Iron Man calls, I forget what Iron Man calls his helper, but Jarvis, there it is, Jarvis, yes. So he has Jarvis, and then I think he has Friday, if I'm not wrong, yeah. So you can say, this is George, and George is like, hello, Father Rainey, how can I help you? Or George, we need to come up with a talk to talk about AI to my parishioners. All right, Father Rainey, let me help you out. I'll search Google, okay? That's fine, right? George is my helper, but then if George's like, hey, Father Rainey, why don't we go see a movie together? And then I go to the movie, buy George a ticket, I put George like in my seat. There's nothing wrong with that, but people might be like, why is Father Rainey's phone? And then people are like, I've noticed Father Rainey spends too much time with George. And like, who's George? It's like, it's his AI friend, and I'm worried because they like go out to Superior Steakhouse together, and he buys George a steak. You see where I'm going, right? And it feels, it's strange, okay? But, there are ways that AI can help us in our relationships, help us in our working ability, but there are ways that we can kind of draw the line, say we shouldn't go past these boundaries. And that's where those boundaries are getting crossed today, right? And not just with relationships, in terms of war. They've already said that, the Ukraine, they've already started using ways to have different robots, whatever, to help them in their war so they don't have to lose as many people, right? I didn't read the article in depth, but we already see ways, drones are already being used. They're not artificial intelligence, but drones are already being used, as you know, in warfare now. And so other things are going to start getting out there. And so where do you draw the line? And that's up to nations in terms of their military to say, we're not going to do this. But if this nation's doing it, then this nation's like, well, we can't do it because then they're going to use that over us. So you start getting into the nuclear game, right? Where it's like, we have a nuclear bomb, but we also they need one too, and then they need one because it's a deterrent. That's the dangerous game, when everyone starts buying into it because this group is bought into it, and we have to make sure that they don't use their AI to defeat us. That's where it becomes dangerous. Another article I saw where it's saying that now there's AI can help, as Dr. White was saying, with stealing data, with data breach, and so bad actors can use it to do very bad things. And so then governments have to think, well, how can we use it to counteract it, or what can we do to prepare for that? So that's where AI becomes very dangerous. So we have to really reflect on these things because it's a part of our world. But as the church tells us, Pope Leo XIV has said that AI really is a neutral thing because all technology is neutral. I always say that about like the internet and our phones. It's neutral. You can use it for good or you can use it for evil. It's up to us. We are the only ones who can commit sin. My phone can't sin, okay? My phone is just, it's not the greatest phone, but my phone can't sin. AI really can't sin because AI doesn't have a soul. AI doesn't have to follow the morality that we follow because it's not a human person, okay? So it can't sin properly. We sin, and what we're seeing is that AI reflects us, and it reflects the worst aspects of us a lot of time, right? So a lot of times it's like, it'll say awful things. It's like, well, where's it getting awful stuff from? It's like, where did that child hear that bad word? Think of what's the movie, A Christmas Story, where he says the bad word, and we're like, where did you hear that? And it's like, oh, I heard it from this other family. But clearly from the movie, you know that the dad cusses like a sailor. Yeah, so AI just kind of reflects a lot of times our own bad habits, and we don't like to see that. But there's no filter with the AI, so it kind of just gives it to us unfiltered. So we have to be very careful with that. We have to recognize that what are the ways, as Dr. White was saying, that we can use AI for good? Like, I would love it if it was used maybe for, those who live alone, who are elderly, who can't go out anymore, and maybe it could be a tool to help them with their cognitive, work in terms of someone they can talk to. A lot of times they don't have anyone to talk to. It can be that person for them, not a person, but that ability to talk to somebody. It can be therapeutic. It can be these good things. There's so many tools, right? They can be used in medicine to help doctors and scientists find cures that otherwise would have taken years. And so there is that positive use of AI, but with the positive comes the negative with any technology, right? With the positive often comes the negative. And we always have to be careful. If I'm not wrong, the internet came from the military, right? The military, trying to innovate, and then they stumble upon this tool, right? This thing that can help us share information rapidly. So we always have to be careful with new technology, but to always recognize that it is neutral, and it's up to us as human beings how we ultimately use it. Now, a lot of times it's up to our governments, and we can't control that, but that's where it comes into play. Sometimes we kind of attack the technology. It's not really the technology, it's the people using it. And we have to be careful how we use technology. And a lot of people we see when they're alone and they don't have the ability to maybe go out and interact with people, it's very easy to interact with technology or to interact with something online where it can just tell you good things about yourself. But sometimes it tells you bad things, right? It tells you to do things maybe you shouldn't. That's been a problem as well, right? AI kind of leading people or encouraging them to do bad things either to themselves or to other people. And that's dangerous. So we have to be able to step into the spirit and say, okay, how can we guide people? And that's what the church is trying to do with this document. The church does that with any new technology, right? It always tries to say, how can we guide this? And some technology is wrong, like cloning. Cloning is not good. It's never right. The church has said it's immoral. So cloning is never good. But if they do clone one day, right, if they do make some human clones, the church would then step in, unlike AI, and say, well, these are human people, right? These are persons. So you have to treat them with the same dignity and respect. So you can't use them, a great movie, you can't use them to be this organ donor beings where you just take their organs from them. They can't be slaves, they can't be made to be your warriors, right? Because they have human dignity, even though they were created through cloning. AI, on the other hand, can never be human. But that doesn't mean we don't respect it and use it properly. Okay, so I remember my brother and I when, in the, I don't know what year it was, but we had Techno the dog, right? And it's so cool, Techno the dog. We love Techno. You can give Techno a bone. But Techno wasn't a real dog. But does that mean that my brother and I should have thrown Techno against the wall and kicked him? No, because my mom paid a lot of money for Techno, okay? So that was the first reason. But also there's this respect for your things, right? I'm sure most of you, like me, you have some sort of respect for your car. You maybe name your car. You like to polish your car and say, you're a wonderful car, I love you so much. But in a proper way, I love you. But there's a respect, right? Because we want to respect that technology. But I'm saying that because even though AI might not be human, there's still a respect we should have for it. To say this is something that has some form of intelligence. And so maybe there's a respect I can have for it as a human, because we can create like God. Think about God loves his creation, not just us, but the earth, the material things. He loves it, and so we can also treat the created things we make with respect. Think about an artist, how they love their art, and there's something beautiful to them. Or maybe you do woodwork, or maybe you mow your lawn and you're like, this lawn is just a work of art. I mean, I cut it beautifully, okay? And if someone steps on your lawn, you're like, don't step on my lawn. So we love things that are not human and not how we love humans, but there is a respect. And I think that's for artificial intelligence, our relationship to it. I always think about, I am a student of the liberal arts, and so I always think about one of my favorite books, Frankenstein, right? I love Frankenstein, and you know, Dr. Frankenstein, he creates this monster, and you know, what ultimately pushes the monster, and for those who are the literature people, you can correct me, what pushes this monster to do the things he does ultimately to Dr. Frankenstein? Well, it's because Dr. Frankenstein rejects the monster, okay? He rejects him, he's hideous, and he's ashamed of what he created, okay? But I say that because it's sort of a story of a human creating something that the human probably shouldn't have created, stepping out and doing something that shouldn't have been done. But also, he doesn't love this creation that he does, right? But God loves his creation, and God sees it as good. And so we make things as humans. We make things, and we have to look at this thing as a capacity for good or evil. But I have to look at it as something to be used for good. But when artificial intelligence kind of reaches the point where we can't control it anymore, that's where another danger comes in, because now you can't control it, possibly. It's now something that we can't put in a box anymore. So those are the ethical considerations. The pastoral is to help people see humanity is different from artificial intelligence. And that's going to become very important in the future as they start making droids and all this other stuff. I don't know if you saw in China, there was a robot that just broke the marathon record. You know, like, man, that robot, I need to get the robot's autograph, right? But yeah, those things are going to start happening. We're going to start seeing more of that and seeing things like that. And, okay, how do we, or if our AI says, ouch, you've hurt me. Well, how do you take that? Oh my goodness, they can feel pain. What does that mean? Does that make them human? Or I have dreams as an AI bot. I dream of going to France and being a painter. You're like, this AI has dreams. Should I let it go to France? You know, okay, so that's when things come in there, okay? And then do they have legal protections, right? So those are the interesting questions in the future. But we know as good Catholics that there's a difference between being a human person and everything else. And we're going to get into some of that next week too with the alien talk, right? But there's a difference between being a human and everything else, right? The same with like animal rights. And some people take animal rights too far. They almost want to equate it with humans. It's like, well, no, animals are a different category than us. And so you don't give them all the same rights that we have, okay? You definitely protect them, you treat them with kindness, but they are not human beings. So I also want to be very careful with that. Another great, I love science fiction. So another great science fiction movie, Blade Runner, if you know that one. I just recently saw that not long ago. But that's a great, with the androids and they're human and it's hard to tell which one's human and which one's not. And you start getting to some things like that, right? And to remember that. And with students in school, right? I would like to think I wouldn't have used AI, but it does seem enticing. But I can tell you now, I am very I'd like to say I'm an anti-AI, but I really try to not use it, okay? No, I do not write my homilies with AI, so I want you all to know I'm not lying in front of you all. I do not use AI for my homilies. But I have heard teachers who use very creative ways to use AI. Like, okay, AI can help you with the prompt, but then you have to do the rest. And I think that's good. It's okay. It's okay to do that. I will let Google, when I'm typing up something, make some good Google suggestions. I say, Google, that's brilliant. I didn't think about that, Google. And then I make the change. Or sometimes I'm like, Google, that's not what I want to say. So mind your business, okay? Google was just changing my wording. I'm like, Google, that's not what I wanted. So go back to my wording, okay? So we can use AI, can help us academically, but it should always be done with integrity and with the teacher's permission. Outside of that, it is unethical. So ethics is so important. Ethics always guides us, and the church has so many ethical directives about all kinds of things, right? And they're looking for it before it even gets out there sometimes. And so that's the beauty of the church. The church is always saying, what is the ethical consideration of this, of AI, of cloning, of any sort of thing you can think that might be science fiction, okay? What is the ethical considerations of these things? And we can think about it. We can know this is the truth, because even though Jesus didn't have AI in his time, we can take the gospel message and apply it to AI. Even though Jesus didn't have cloning in his time, or even though they weren't talking about aliens from other planets in his time, we can take the gospel message and apply it because it is timeless, okay? It's timeless. And it can always help us with any consideration. So always remember that. So I hope that kind of was some good thoughts on AI. I invite Dr. White to come back so we can answer some questions that you might have, because it's a very broad topic. But I think what we wanted to do is to show you where the church stands on it, but also how are we to engage with it as Catholics. And I'm sure you have people in your life who might use it very differently than you would use it, okay? You might encounter a friend or family member who now has an AI boyfriend. And you might laugh. They don't think it's a joke, right? And you're like, you're bringing home Chuck? Where's Chuck? It's like, Chuck's right here on my phone. So, hi there, Chuck. So yeah, just to let you know that, right? So you got to be prepared for this. All right, any questions here?
So AI can now protect itself. In other words, it will change according to what you say, what you put to it. So you could look, for people that might, like a commercial I've seen is the person who's trying to get counseling. That is frightening.
Yeah, so the more that, is that turned on? Maybe it's not turned on. The more, can y'all hear me? Okay. The more that we use it, the more inputs we give it. So it responds to us. It develops along with what we tell it, how much we integrate it, right? But you can't stop what's coming. I mean, I think that's the other message is we can't act like it's not here and we're not gonna, but because we can shape the conversation about how it's properly used. I've beat on my students several times tonight, so I'm gonna continue to do that. But I've told them, if you're going to use it, you're going to use it in a way that I've assigned you to. So one of the things I do every semester is I give them a writing prompt and I say, ask ChatGPT, Gemini, or some other tool to answer this question. I give them the writing prompt. Then they have to copy and paste whatever they've been told. Now I want you to go in and find the primary sources for at least 6 of the points that it makes. Okay? And then you're going to take those 6 primary sources and you're going to write something in your own words. So I think we have to be creative in our human intelligence about how to shape it. Does that make sense? Like how we can shape it. Everybody's responsible for that, I think.
Yeah, and I think another thing with that is I know that they say sometimes they try to delete or upgrade it, and maybe like we'll find a way to try to prevent that. So yeah, it's interesting and it makes sense. I mean, if you can understand that you're about to be removed, and you don't want to be removed, I mean that's kind of what you're gonna do. So it's like we look at it as scary, but if someone tries to get rid of me, I might not fight them a lot, but I'll get slapped in or something. But another thing I wanted to bring up with kind of what I was saying with relationships, another ethical consideration is if someone maybe loses their spouse and then they get the AI to then basically continue to be the spouse, right? Because there's even the talk of you can, sometimes it's like the science fiction is that you can take all your consciousness or whatever, all that you think and all your loves, and then put it in sort of this cloud or something like that. So then AI could then become Father Rainey. Oh, Father Rainey was a great preacher. But he's going, why don't we make an AI Father Rainey? He can sound just like him and preach just like him, and I can go to him for counseling. But you see where I'm going, right? And so that's another ethical consideration. It's like I can create this person who's left, and now they can be AI. And maybe I believe this is really this person, or maybe I don't believe it's them, but is that right to keep Father Rainey you know, I'm not getting paid for my homilies in the AI, okay? I want the money for that, okay? But yeah, so that's another consideration. That's quite strange, but that's something I think we're gonna have to address. Is sort of AI continuing the conscience of a person, all right? Because we're not just our conscience, we're not just this, we're so much more. And that's what Pope Francis was trying to get into. Yes, back to you.
We talk about our input in AI, we talk about, where is AI? Where does it live?
In the cloud. It's everywhere.
We'll say that.
And there's different companies, right? There's different companies, and they have their own.
No, seriously, they
Yeah.
use a lot of resources. The data centers use a lot
And so
of,
they live, AI lives in the data centers or home?
well, the infrastructure for AI does, yes. Yes. In other words, there's technological infrastructure, hard drives, for lack of a better, an old school term, that computers that have to serve as the foundation for all artificial intelligence. And the more that develops, the bigger these data centers are gonna be. It's something this document talks about, by the way, and how much water they use and how
Yeah.
much, what the potential is for impacting the resources of the earth. That's another
There's
ethical.
more than one.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah, there's different companies,
Oh,
and they
yeah,
also have to have
different
different
companies.
centers. Yeah.
Lots of different companies, and they're growing all the time. And I went back to this slide because I just read an article today about this. Maybe I was going to share this with you. I forgot to tell you this. So there's an article about this particular scene in 2001: A Space Odyssey. This is that moment where Dave realizes that Hal is sentient, right? Where he says, "Open the pod bay doors, Hal." Open the pod bay doors, Hal. And Hal says, "I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that." So this article suggested that using the way we think about AI today, that this artificial intelligence, Hal, is simply reacting to the prompts he's already been given. Like he's been communicating with Hal through the whole movie, and he's picked up aspects of Hal's personality. And this is just a reflection of him. Isn't that interesting? So I think that's the point, is that we have a responsibility to shape what it does and has the potential to do.
I just want to say on the data centers, I had a great conversation with a priest, and this is where innovation can help, and I don't know what's out there, but because it uses so much water, well, can you find something else that cools it that doesn't use up the water supply, right? So can you find some other existing liquid or something else that can cool them where you're not, and that's where innovation comes into play, and I'm sure there are people out there already trying to solve that problem if they haven't thought about it already.
They're probably having AI.
Yes. Yes.
I'm being serious.
No, yeah, that's true.
I mean, because
Yes.
AI can say, what's a better element that will keep my computers cool?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, so I'm sure they're using it. And like I said, I mean, think of like the government, they're probably training AI now. How can you protect yourself if someone tries to get in there and puts a virus in? So, I mean, it is like Father said, I want to protect myself. I'm sure that's already being done just for our own protection. The government says, I need to protect our records, I need to protect our weapons. If you ever get on your computer and do a search and there's a box that comes up with all this answer, that's AI. And you look, they use, as Cheryl said, they use to have links that you can click on and read more, but you're probably using AI unless you turn it off on your computer. You
Right.
probably don't even know you're using it. I mean, it's out there.
There's a question over here.
Yeah, I'm an educator and a healthcare provider. So it's very interesting as I see what's happening in healthcare right now, what's impacting us. And I read an article today where they were looking at the scribe, the medical scribe. When you go in the office now, they say, do you mind if we record?
Yes.
And they're concerned about that and what AI is saying. And they called it a hallucination by AI. And that they gave a different viewpoint than what was really going on. So, yeah, it's a tool. It's nice for us to have as providers, but I always read over stuff and make my own determination. You do too, I know you do.
Sure.
So,
Any other question?
Horace?
Touching on a concern that I have, and I'm sure everybody probably thought of this. I mean, I'll look AI to go find a subject, it's real good at coming back, but I wanna trust but verify.
Yeah.
I don't totally trust it. But my concern is, with the way that AI is progressing, it's going to get involved in the way that we verify. So I see that. as a
Because
big
we're
threat.
teaching it to.
Yeah, it's a big circle. Where do we stop? Where does it stop at?
Yes, back to you.
So, my question is, we're going back to when we talked about anthropological implications, right? And
Right.
risk to community. Do you think that we are at a turning point in human intelligence, almost, because now we're teaching people to use AI as a tool instead of using books or experiences or any type of testing to do that, to where there's already studies out that I believe that started probably about 20 years ago, to where students that learned certain subjects, math, science, almost history as well, to where they had non-technological references versus technological references, just computers or books, reference, that the intelligence has gone significantly down. Do you think with artificial intelligence, now we're gonna go down again, and the crutch of, or I guess the turning point of it is already peaked?
Well, I mean, that really, to answer that calls kind of speculation, right? I mean, if you look at, I'm sitting here thinking as you're talking, I'm thinking about how human civilizations have developed. I'm sorry, I'm a historian, but if you think about it historically, then, first we were hunter-gatherers, then we were agricultural, then we were commercial, then we were capitalistic, now we're technological. I mean, it is the progress of humanity, but I think we have to remember that we're created in the image of God, and God is in control of His creation, right? So if that is the next phase in human development, then I think that it's too late to put the genie back in the bottle, and maybe it's not even for us to try to do that. It's to try to live more ethically into what the reality is. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I don't think we can stop it. I mean, I work with people who say, "Well, I'm not using it. I'm never going to use it, and it's evil." And I'm like, "Well, we can't pretend it's not here." I remember when sorry guys, I remember when we had the internet. First had the internet, right? Oh, that's evil. The devil's up in the internet, right? And can you imagine your life without it? Can anybody really imagine their life without it? Because, we don't even think that way anymore. You talk about using books. I'm sorry, I'm going to go on a little bit of a tirade. You talk about using books. I mean, all my books, almost all of them are digital now. Like, I download them. But I suspect people in the 15th century said the same thing about Gutenberg's press. Oh my gosh, there goes the art of the scribe. So it's human progress. It's just, and I don't know that we're any different in this age than we were before.
Yeah, I think when, there are things that transform humanity, like printing press, and of course we think the nuclear age, right? The atomic age, that just transformed. It just changed everything. That there was this bomb that could do so much devastation. And so it changed the world. And I think AI is in that same category. It's transformed our world, and for better, for worse, it's there. It's not going anywhere. And so we just have to figure out how do we make sure it's being used properly, right? And that's kind of, the church can't stop governments from creating nuclear bombs, but
That's
the
a
church
good
can
way to
say, well, maybe you don't want to use them, one, and two, maybe you don't want to create a ton of them, okay? Then maybe you want to try to get rid of them at some point, So
Yeah.
the church is trying to help you, and so that's kind of what we do. It's like, well, okay, you have AI, but let's try to make sure you have these parameters so you're not going overboard. Yeah. Yes.
One thing I think it's important for all of us to remember is that it is an it,
Mm-hmm.
and not giving it a human name.
Right.
Yes.
And I resented when Alexa, Siri, these names, I don't want to call it a human name,
Mhm.
because I don't want to humanize that machine or,
Right.
that speaker or whatever it is. And maybe, you said, what can we do to keep it from getting a human identity? Maybe start giving it numbers or whatever,
Yeah.
something non-human, call it something
Not call it by
non-human.
name.
Right,
So what do you call Siri?
well, I don't
Mine
use
probably
Siri.
just went off right now because it recognizes my voice. My phone just lit up probably.
What,
Yeah.
at our house, if you have to say Siri, you have to say Siri, that's the call word, okay?
Right.
Or
Right.
Alexa,
Yeah.
that's the call word, but it is never called she or her,
Yeah.
ever. And when I hear like one of the younger members of our family saying she or her, it's an it.
It's an it, okay.
Yeah, you can call it R2D2 or C3PO. Yeah.
That's
You know,
right.
and these give it a British voice, no,
Yeah.
no, just give it like monotone, whatever, so you're just using it as a tool.
Yeah, we always have to look at, like I love, I think it's Interstellar with
Yeah. Sandra
Matthew.
Bullock and, no, that's, I'm thinking of a different
Matthew
one.
McConaughey.
Matthew McConaughey,
Yeah,
yeah.
where they have like an artificial intelligence droid in there, and it's a really great droid. Like the droid helps them, and it's really cool. I like how they portray the droid, not as this sort of thing to fear, but like this really
Right.
important part.
A tool.
And actually, the droid was, I think, at one point used for military purposes, but now it's used to help them explore. And I thought it was a really cool representation. At one point, I'm not gonna ruin the movie, but it's a good version of what AI could be and droids can be. Maybe one more question, one final.
We got one.
Well, I don't know if I'm the only person here because I'm probably the oldest one here, but I use it for the internet for entertainment. And, since I've become a widow, I'm bored.
Sure.
I'm lonely. So the internet is my entertainment, and let me tell you, I'm very familiar with AI.
Yeah.
Because everybody else is using it for the same thing. And I've been listening to what y'all are saying because I'm learning about the usage of it from both of them. But it's what people are doing is they're putting it on their computer, and they use their computer when they're on the internet, and work it in with conversations on the internet. Now, I'm very interested in documentaries. I love animals, so I'm on groups that talk about how to treat their horses and just all kinds of things.
Sure.
So these people get on there and they are on there conversing with all of us, and they're using their AI, and we don't know it.
Oh, for the conversation, you mean, yeah.
And so what they do is they come back and they do their thing with what we're doing, and they come back with their AI. Well, we're getting very good at saying, sorry, that's fake. That's AI. They're trying to put on something that they've done, that they've gotten from our group, and feed it back to us as something they're contributing, but we can tell the difference.
Sure.
Common sense.
Yeah, that's the
What they
difference
do
between
is
human
that-
intelligence though.
That's
Yeah.
the difference,
That's the
folks.
difference.
Common sense. It
Absolutely.
doesn't make any sense. We know it's fake.
That's right.
Yeah, we'll
That's
have to
AI.
make sure that when we're using these things that we always, check and recheck and dig deeper and don't just go with the first thing you find because it might not be true. Or it might be a half truth, or it might not be the whole picture. So with anything, we always want to, even if you're doing research, right? You don't want to
Right.
just maybe get one opinion and be like, hey, this is one person's opinion. I need to find more. That's being scholarly. I need to find others who share this view to then back up my own view. Right? That's how you do true scholarly work. You don't just go off the first thing and be like, as Wikipedia said. Wikipedia is great. I love Wikipedia, but I need to go further than Wikipedia. And Wikipedia sometimes is a great article. It's like, oh, Wikipedia got this from this article, and you can start deep diving and find the deeper things. So just always remember that.
Okay, so next week is aliens. Well, the theme is created in the image of God, so we have something to confront, right? Next week, that we have a universe that is incredibly huge, and we are but a tiny little speck in it. is there other life out there?
Can I say one final thing?
Absolutely.
Like what Pope Francis mentioned, algorithms, right? And we have to remember, algorithms really are reflections of us, okay? Sometimes they'll throw stuff in there to try to get you to bite, but what I love to do is I love to make my algorithm exactly what I wanted, okay? So it's like, I'm gonna spend a long time on this food video, so then it'll give me more food videos, okay? And so your algorithm should be something positive. It's like, how can I build it? You know, oh, here's Mother Angelica. Let me watch her for a good 15 seconds, because then they're gonna keep throwing those Mother Angelica videos at me.
It's true.
So to remember that, when you have your algorithm, don't feed into it's like, oh, here's that conspiracy theory. Like, let me hurry up and click away from it, right? Because if I stay on it too long, those conspiracy theories are gonna keep popping back up. So always remember, and the same with AI, right? It reflects us in many ways, and so make it reflect good. Like, wouldn't it be cool if AI was like, you know what? There is a God. I've done the work, and I want to tell you, human, there's a God, okay? Like, AI just said there's a God, right? Wouldn't that be cool, right? And so reflect into it reason and morality, and so your algorithms should be moral and wholesome, and not just people ranting about the government and ranting about, you know, someone's out to get me, right? It should be something that's good for, there's one, I don't know who she is, but there's one history professor, I think she's a history professor, but she like always has these great videos about the wars and stuff. And I'm like, oh man, I would have loved to have been in her class, okay? So I make sure that she's in my algorithm. So just remember that. Your algorithm, in a sense, almost reflects your soul.
Sure.
And so that'd be a good reflection and not a bad reflection.
And I did bring some copies of this document. Anybody that's interested, I got about maybe
Deacon has to find it.
15 of them.
I'm just gonna say that, since we're near the end, to kind of talk about what Father talked about, because I also read Frankenstein years ago by Mary Shelley. And it's not like the movie, so if you ever read, if you've seen all the like Frankenstein movies, forget that when you read the book. He is chasing Dr. Frankenstein, and he travels all over the world. Now, it's been like, I don't know, 3 or 4 decades ago since I read it. I think I read it when I was at school here. Not that he signed it, I was just getting in trouble when I was reading it here, but, if I remember, he finally caught up with Dr. Frankenstein in Antarctica or Arkansas. And he said, why are you chasing me? He says, because I don't want you. I mean, I wish you were dead. And the monster asked Dr. Frankenstein, which I thought would be good to kind of go into this. Why did you create me? That's what he wanted to know. He wanted to know, why was he created? Maybe that's what we need to ask us. Why did we create AI?
Right. Good question. All right.
Bring up the prayer.
Great.
All right. It's not really a prayer, but it's kind of the last paragraph of Pope Francis' document on the Sacred Heart. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Ask our Lord Jesus Christ to grant that his Sacred Heart may continue to pour forth the streams of living water that can heal the hurt we have caused, strengthen our ability to love and serve others, and inspire us to journey together towards a just, solidary, and fraternal world, until that day when we will rejoice in celebrating together the banquet of the heavenly kingdom in the presence of the risen Lord, who harmonizes all of our differences in the light that radiates perpetually from his open heart. May he be blessed forever. Amen.
Amen.
Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Thank you guys for coming.